So, welcome everybody to today's monthly MRC coordinator webinar. So, as we get started, I'm going to go ahead this morning and turn it over to Jeanette. She has something that she wants to discuss with you guys.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. As you know, everything is being sponsored by the MRC Strong Grant, including this webinar and our speakers. One of the efforts that we're doing is a big marketing and recruitment campaign. Some of you might have seen some billboards or some of the social media ads that we placed. We have a chunk of money that we would like to use for additional recruitment, but we want to make sure that it's helpful to you at the community level. So we're going to post a survey in the chat. Andrea, are you able to put that?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Let me show you the survey on the screen real quick. It's only going to take a minute to complete. So if you can actually click on the link that Andrea's about to put in the chat and you can see it for yourself. This is just a little bit of an introduction, but here are some of the ideas that we're asking for your feedback. Cable TV, so basically running some cable TV ads. Now, we have a lot of us are turning to streaming. I used to have cable TV, but then it became like $200, so then we had to cancel it. So we're trying to figure out which of these are helpful to you and what you believe would be helpful in your community. Spotify ads. Do you feel that your targeted area use the Spotify app and would be able to hear the ads if we placed it? We want to make sure that we're using our monies well and it's hitting the targeted audience. Radio ads. Now, I just want to point out that number one, two, and three are pretty much going to cancel each other out. So whatever we go for, those first three are going to be the most expensive ones. So we'll probably have to choose one of them. Radio ads and Spotify ads won't have the same visual that a cable TV would. But if you feel that in your audience, in your community, that would be the best way to reach people, encourage them to volunteer for you, then vote for that. And then another option is a Google search ad. So this would be like if you go into your Google search bar and you put in a word, let's say you put in Medical Reserve Corps, and whatever comes up, including Medical Reserve Corps, there might be some sponsored ads. That's what we're thinking of doing, is coming up with some search words. Now you have to pay for these. It can be expensive. It depends on the number of markets you want to be in and for how long. But we would use some key search words, and then the Merkle website would come up as a sponsored ad basically at the top. Another option is to do local media outreach. So let's say you let us know that you have an event, an exercise, something going on with your Medical Reserve Corps that you want to be showcased, and you would like our media company that we're working with to create a press release and work with your local media outlet to try to get attention to your event. And that's what that would mean. And we would pay for that to do that. Now, we don't want to step on your PIO's toes. So this would definitely mean that we would need to work with you and get approval with your administration to do this on your behalf. Number 6 and 7 are both recruitment toolkits. So these are digital recruitment toolkits. Number 6 would target healthcare folks, and number 7 would target the young folks, ages 18 to 22. A number of units have let us know that that is a target audience for you, that you want more younger folks into your unit. So a digital toolkit would be something like a digital brochure that you could use and print out that would be specifically targeted to that. Some other marketing materials. We haven't fully flushed this out yet and what else would be in that digital toolkit. We just want to get a sense of, is this even of an interest to you? Would this be helpful to you for you and your community? These these bullets, are explanations of what we've already done. So there is a question at the very end of the survey that asks you, what other ideas might you have? Just know that we have done these things. We've done billboards, We have created the MRC brochure. You should have print copies as well as digital copies. We've done posts on social media, and we've also purchased ads on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We've launched a commercial quality video, and you have access to snippets that you could use yourself to recruit medical and non-medical volunteers. And then in progress, we are producing another commercial quality video, this time from a volunteer perspective. So if you have any other ideas other than this and other than the first 7 that's listed here, please let us know. The form is very short. As you can see here, it is 4 questions. For number 3, you can answer all of the above, but we would prefer that you really specify what would be the most helpful for you, your unit, and your community. If you could please answer this by the end of today, it would be really helpful to us. Thank you so much. Any questions about the survey? Okay. For those joining late, there is a survey link in the chat. If you could please fill that out and turn it in, hopefully by the end of this webinar, but if not the end of today, that would be so helpful to us in planning for a really large marketing campaign for you guys to help with recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. So I am very excited about today's webinar. I think it'll be a huge benefit to all of you guys as local MRC leaders. So I have the pleasure today of introducing Ben Thompson, our very own Ben Thompson, that currently serves on the Merkle board. He started in public health in 2016 and has just, loved public health and preparedness itself ever since. He currently is the Readiness and Response Grant Administrator at MRC Health, which also translates as the RHCC. So, Ben, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So Bethany asked me to talk about creating a budget as a local MRC leader. I agreed. So I will give it my best shot. So just a little bit about myself. So I've served on the Merkle board since 2017. I was instrumental in applying for the Strong Award that Merkle currently has. I was the former emergency response coordinator in McDonough County for almost 7 years. During that time, also we covered Schuyler County for a bit of time. Was successful in receiving several ORA and RISE Award, and also successful in receiving scholarships to attend MRC events and the NATO Preparedness Summit. One of the events I did attend with MRC was an MRC leadership event. I don't remember the exact name of it, but they actually flew us out to Washington, D.C., to the NATO office for a couple days for a leadership event. And also during my time when I lived in McDonough County, I was a volunteer on a local fire department. So currently, I'm still on the Merkle board as a treasurer. Even though I'm not with the unit, because of applying for the Strong Award and the knowledge that I have from the board, and all the board members were new, they graciously asked me to stay on. I'm currently the regional, oversee the Healthcare Coalition in Region 1 and emergency management for 2 hospitals in Rockford. And I also volunteer with Med Global. So creating a budget is crucial for ensuring the effectiveness of use of funds. And creating a budget from a notice of funding requires careful planning and attention to detail. Without those steps, or by those steps, you can make the most effective use of those funds. Otherwise, your funding from that grant is no good. So you want to carefully read the notice of funding. Also, sometimes you'll hear it called request for applications. A lot of times, notice of funding is what you hear. If necessary, notify your chain of command after reading it to make sure that you qualify for it and they're all right with you applying for it. Identify the funding requirements and restrictions. Some grants have a match for it, some don't. And then also note the deadlines and submission guidelines. Some grants have a quick turnaround of you have 2 weeks to apply or 30 days to apply. So just make sure you note those. In addition, some of the grants have reports that you have to submit by certain dates. So some grants also offer office hours. So make sure to attend those if they offer them. If you're unable to attend them, watch the recording if they offer them. You can find a lot of good information on them. They often go through the grant, the budget. A lot of information is given there. A lot of times people ask questions. Sometimes they're the same questions you have or questions you haven't thought of, and you get answers. So it's really a good opportunity. Sometimes with grants, they also put out a frequently asked questions document. Make sure to download that, review it. That's another good document to have. And another thing is, after you read the notice of funding, you think of something you want to put in your budget, but you're, just not sure. It doesn't hurt to reach out and ask if it's a, qualified item to put in the budget, in the grant. They'll either tell you yes or no. And I'd rather have an answer before I submit the grant and then be denied the grant or the application because it was rejected. So these are just some budget categories. These are actually the ones that I took out of the ORA that came out recently. So every grant application is different. So direct labor, that's going to be, your personnel costs, MRC coordinator. If you have other staff working MRC, that's where you put that. Same with your fringe benefits. Contracts or professional services. That would be, if you have any contractors or any professional services that you hire out. Materials and office supplies. That would where, you put office supplies such as, folders or pens that you buy. Travel, pretty self-explanatory of, mileage, or if you're traveling to some meeting. And then other expenses is anything that doesn't fit in those other categories, is what I would put there. But I would always consult your notice of funding or request for applications, your guidance for what they want in those categories. So when Doing your budget, you want to make sure to gather cost estimates for each of your budget categories. Use historical data and quotes from vendors, and ensure costs are reasonable and justifiable. If you're going to buy, CPR mannequins, go to a website that you would buy them from, or a vendor, get a price quote of what it would cost. Obviously, prices can change between you getting the grant and the quote, that happens, but at least you have a decent idea of what the cost would be. And reasonable and justifiable. If you're purchasing pens, don't put that the pens are costing, $500 when, pens would only cost, $50. You want to make sure to allocate funds based on priorities and funding requirements. I've seen a lot of times through my, through applying for grants with the fire department, and then with the health department, there's always priorities in the grants of these are our highest priorities and lower priorities. So a lot of times they will allocate most of the funding to the higher priorities. So you want to make sure that you hit on those higher priorities to get funding. Make sure your budget matches your narrative. So if you're requesting CPR, or if you're in the budget, you're requesting funding for CPR training supplies, make sure in your project narrative that you have information in there about, CPR training. Make sure you're in compliance with, funding restrictions. Make sure you're spending the money on things that you're allowed to spend it on, and maintain flexibility for unseen expenses. Reviewing and finalizing the budget. Review the budget for accuracy and completeness. You want to make sure that all your calculations add up. Get approval from relevant stakeholders. I always review the budget with my leadership. A lot of times I had the privilege of my leadership would always let me do the budget. They just wanted to see it when I got done, and normally they were fine with it. And then submit the budget as per the guidelines in the notice of funding. Monitoring and reporting. Regularly monitor the budget to ensure adherence. Prepare periodic financial reports. Adjust the budget as necessary based on actual expenses and notice of funding requirements. And submit budget amendments as necessary per the notice of funding. So I understand, and I even had this at public health, even in my current job, that I have someone else, they do the financial reports, and then I just get a report of a monthly financial report of what money has been spent. So they, I don't prepare the periodic financial reports, but I'm able to see what money from my grant has been spent. Same thing with the public health. I was able to see what money of my RISE award had been spent, what money of my ORA award had been spent. So I was able to monitor that. And then submit budget adjustments. Some grants require you to submit budget adjustments or budget amendments. Some grants don't require you to submit budget amendments. You just have to make sure to read your notice of funding to find out if they want you to submit budget amendments or not. So there's some tips. Like I said, be realistic with your estimates. Don't, overestimate, a lot on, some of your things, such as the example, like I said, with pens, involve your key stakeholders in the budgeting process. Um, as unit leaders, you can always ask um, your members, hey, we're applying for this. Do you have any ideas of what you want to see us do or apply for, and take that input. Same, work with your stakeholders. I also see that as your leadership of the, your hosting organization. Keep detailed records of all expenses. I know most hosting organizations, they have a financial person that does that, and then review and update the budget regularly. And then budget mistakes, to avoid. Same thing, underestimating costs, not budgeting enough for some of your costs, failing to account for all the expenses, not monitoring the budget regularly, and ignoring, feedback. And obviously some of these repeat, but they're very important that we do with the budget. So once again, update the budget based on actual expenses and new information, such as if your CPR mannequins cost more than budget or they came in lower. Communicate changes to all stakeholders is important. So I'm sure some of you have seen, the budget template that we use for the strong sub awards. So this is just an example I put up. So it's pretty, detailed, and every grant is totally different of what they want to see or expect. So as you can see, like under personnel, it says MRC coordinator. Fringe benefits, it says the 25% of above salary. Equipment, explains what they're going to use the laptop for. Same with the projector. Under supplies, office supplies, and it gives an example, binders. Even though this is, MRC, we know what the uniforms and tablecloth are, but it still says MRC. And in contracts and consultants, it says stop the bleed, CPR, first aid. So we have a good idea of what this is, pretty detailed. So it's a good, budget. And then I changed it, and it just says staff. Well, what type of staff? We don't, just looking at this and reviewing this, we don't know what staff this is. Is this the administrator? Is this a coordinator? Is this a nurse? Is this, we don't know anything. Fringe benefits, there's no percentage. And yeah, like I said, this is an MRC, grant, but why do you need a computer and projector? Yes, it is obvious, you're going to use it for MRC, but oh, why do you need it? Supplies. What supplies are you buying with that $800? Is it office supplies, training supplies? What? And then if you look at CPR, under contracts and consultants, what about CPR for that price? There's just not enough detail in this, for like a reviewer to approve this budget. So just make sure that you're detailed enough, submitting budgets when you apply for different grants, that they know what what you're doing in your budget, but also make sure to read the notice of funding to make sure you're giving them the information you want. And then I just wanted to share from when I applied in my previous position for the RISE Award, just how detailed I had to be in my budget. I had to put the item, including the brand and model number, if it was applicable, the quantity, the price per item, and then what it was going to be used for. And then I also had to provide a link to the item out there. So just how detailed, and as an example of how detailed that budget was. And just I'm going to share some snippets of some guidance, and this just came from the sub award. What you can't use the funds for. So it's really clear in the guidance of what you can't use the funds for. And then in the grant guidance, obviously it gives you an idea. This is item or an idea number 7 of what to use the funds for. And then this is from the ORA of examples of project goals and our objectives. They even give you some examples of project areas in their guidance. They list allowable expenses even. And then same thing with the ORA, just as the sub award, they list expenses that aren't allowed. So most grants are like that. So be prepared. Some grants can require in-depth budgets, or they may send it back asking for more information. That happened with me applying for the RISE Award. So I had to provide more information on the budget. And then find your way of doing this. So I just want to share like my way of kind of doing it. I read the notice of funding or the request for applications. And then I personally use an Excel spreadsheet to draft my budget. I like to just see everything on one sheet. And then I review the budget with my stakeholders, my leadership. I revise it as needed. And then I input that budget into the application format. But my suggestion to everyone is, find your way that works for you, and have a backup. But like I said, this is just my way of doing it. Everyone, has a different way of doing it. Some people just like to do it on the application. But I like to just have it all on one sheet, going through to do it, and then inputting it into the application. So talking about budgets, and we all know that, funding is, the number one thing. We need more funding. So where do I find some more funding? Well, first you got to plant a money tree. No, but no. So obviously nature award scholarships, I would always apply for those. And these are just some that I've known of. Obviously I know there's a lot more out there, but I know Walmart has done, funding. At the fire department, our annual fundraising event, we always applied for funding from Casey General Stores. They would give us funding. Power cooperatives, where I used to live, would give funding. Different foundations also give funding. I've heard of factories and manufacturing entities giving funding. And I know there's several others out there. Just think outside the box of where you can get some funding. And then what about non-funding? Think about that also. So of course, currently I'm partial to the RHCC. So think about your RHCC in your area. Hospitals, medical supply stores, ambulance service, fire department, emergency management. Once again, think outside the box, and work with your community partners. So what I mean by this is like, if you're doing, say, Stop the Bleed training, and you need some training tourniquets, reach out to one of these places and see if you can borrow some training tourniquets, or if you need gauze pads for something, some training, or some event, or to give away with something. And, reach out to one of these and say, hey, can I get some gauze pads? Or say you need a box of gloves for something. Reach out to one of these and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Can I get a box of gloves? But, just think outside the box, of how you can work with some of these other partners to get some things. So wrapping it up, remember, reading for details is extremely important. I know some of the guidance can get boring, but it's very important to read the details all the way through. Take your time to learn about the grant. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's always a contact in the guidance. Don't be afraid to ask questions to them, or if they offer office hours, don't be afraid to ask questions. And then without a good budget and a project narrative, there is no funding. So I think that was my last slide. So with that, I am no grant expert.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for your presentation. And I know we wanted to leave a little bit of extra time for some questions because budgeting can, sometimes point questions out. So, Michael, I do see your hand up. So, what question do you have for Ben?
Well, yeah, I've been, and first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to present this. This is a confusing component. I swear grant writing is a little bit skill set and black magic too, so you never know. But you mentioned the word unforeseen expenses. Make sure you leave room for unforeseen expenses. Auditors, they hate words like miscellaneous. And if you in a corporate in budgets, you don't want to have a large miscellaneous number in there. There's small number. But do you have what language could you use for that? And would you, if for a $5,000 budget, like what we're seeing with some of these awards here that we've been reviewing, what language and what percentage of that could you use to say for unexpected expenses? Do you have any advice for that?
So I guess kind of like, I guess kind of what I feel like unforeseen is, if you get a quote for like a computer or projector, or even if you go out, on Amazon and look for a computer or projector, that's probably not going to be the same price in 30 days. It's probably going to go up or down. So if you say the projector is $1,000, today, so if you budget 1,500, you're not.
Okay.
I guess that's
Okay.
kind of how I would see it.
So you're basically you're buying your
Your cushion, I guess.
budgeting a cushion,
Yeah.
and not necessarily a line item for unexpected item expenses. It's just that you're putting that into the line item for the projector in this particular case, this example.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I got it.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, because I never had a miscellaneous and line item.
Okay.
Because I definitely know where you're coming from, that they don't like that miscellaneous line item.
Well, exactly. Right. No, they don't. And has anybody ever had experience with for example, Walmart, or let's say another, or Lowe's, or any other major box store, or maybe even, quite frankly, even some of your local Ace Hardwares or something, the local community stores that actually have a vested interest in the community. Has anybody had experience going to them and say, I need some wound packing material for training? And by the way, our MRC group can provide some of your staff with Stop the Bleed training in return. Is anything that's outside the box? But has anybody seen Walmart or anything like any company like that donate merchandise for an MRC unit? Question mark. Going out to everybody.
If anybody is trying to respond, make sure you unmute your mic, or you can type it in the chat.
Michael, I haven't heard of that. I'm sorry, this is Dawn.
Yeah, Dawn, good morning.
Okay,
Well, I haven't either,
but
but I
that's
never
a great
even
idea, though.
approached it. I mean, when Ben listed, Walmart and others, it made me think, well, now they've got a ton of merchandise. They've got
Mhm.
they have a lot of everything, basically. And if you went to them with, so the question begs to be asked, at least in my mind, if you went to medical supply store, for example, or if you went to Walmart and you said, I need wound packing material, I need a lot of it because I've got this prop for Stop the Bleed, and it bleeds if in the training, we use the material, we throw it away. We use material, we throw it away. And so we tend to go through a lot of that kind of stuff. Would your organization be willing to donate a box, of wound packing material? And in appreciation for that, we certainly would be willing to train some of your team leaders in Stop the Bleed. And you can come over to our office. We go over to your place. Whatever. It's just 2 hours of their time, and we can give them some hands-on training from licensed instructors. And I don't know. I mean, I'm talking out louder, but I didn't even think about it until Ben mentioned, some of these big box stores, and is something like that a possibility? Because if it is, you might develop quite a relationship with them. And who knows, maybe for Christmas you get a free drone. I don't know.
I can
So-
respond to that a little bit.
Come on,
Okay.
do.
I have not had experience asking for our MRC because I'm a new leader, but I am a part of a running club and we have races. And we just go to our local grocery stores and ask, will you donate water bottles? And we get 100 water bottles. Or Hy-Vee is a really good one. Jewel is a really good one. Can you donate granola bars for our volunteers? And usually they have a budget. They usually do need a letterhead saying you are not for profit and your number related to that. Oftentimes they'll ask that you somewhere put their name on a flyer or just a little sign, water bottles donated by Hy-Vee. But our local, in general, all of our local stores, if we go in and ask them and they have a little bit of money left in their budget, they give us stuff. So I haven't tried it with our MRC because I haven't had that opportunity yet, but it's certainly something to think about it, particularly if you're going to do like a cooling station in the summer and you want water bottles or things like that. They'd probably be happy to donate. They haven't really ever said no for the most part. So.
Split.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that, Mary.
Yeah, we'll do. We've done on behalf of MRC and slash the same kind of health department, because we're kind of the same thing in some respects. The optics certainly, but yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mary.
So Ben, follow-up question. So as a benefit for all the MRC leaders on the call, you've shared your experience with grant writing, MRC grants, grants for your fire department, and now as your role with the RHCC with budgeting. What would you say your top 3 lessons learned, either through mistakes or challenges or things like that? What would your top 3 lessons learned be?
Top 3 lessons learned. I think my first lesson obviously is obviously you can't buy everything that you want every year. So I've had to learn to if you're going to do like a project, kind of space it out. Year 1 you do this, year 2, or same thing with like the ORA. Hope that you can get continuing ORA awards and split it out over several of them. Continue to work with your partners, your community partners on things, of how you can use each other's resources, is really been beneficial. Trying to think of something else.
So like a wish list of sorts, like a project wish list,
So, and that's the
community
other thing.
partnerships, and
So, and that's the other thing, even Yeah, I did that at the health department. I've even done this here. We have a constant wish list going of things. Of, we think of, oh, this would be awesome to have. This would be nice to have. Of a constant wish list of things. So even if we got funding, sometime we had, stuff, or even if our directors or vice presidents were to come and say, hey, we got this, we got funding we can spend. What do you want? Type of thing. We have stuff ready to go.
So as always be prepared, huh?
Yes, be prepared. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. Dawn, you have a
And
question?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
it's
Dawn.
more of a, I'm sorry, it's more of a comment. Listening to Ben introduce himself, and he described he's been doing this since 2017. It's almost like watching a child of mine just growing up in preparedness, and now he's RHCC coordinator, and I'm just as proud as ever. But you did not make mention of a purchase you received or ordered from one of your awards, which was the drone. And you had a big write-up on what you did with that drone and how you performed in the search and rescue and found the missing person. Can you just elaborate a little bit? Because we do have a conference coming up hosted by FEMA, and I received an invitation yesterday, which I will forward to all the MRC leaders. But could you just share a little bit of that, Ben, and how you purchased that with the awards?
so my unit, before I took the position, had a partnership with the local university GIS department, as a joint partnership for the drone program. And so when I took over the position, I kept that going. And so we put funding together to keep the drone program together. We One of the projects, obviously, as technology improved through the years, was getting obviously a much more expensive drone than either of us could afford, and more than my funding could go towards. So we seeked funding from several other community partners to put towards it. And we were successful. And then the search and rescue program for that county actually was ran by the Medical Reserve Corps, which started before me, and we kept it going. So whenever we were called out, our drone partnership group was called out. It was used in several counties around us. So that's one thing that we would always apply for, was funding for that, because like I said, technology kept changing. Got to keep buying batteries, because batteries just don't last forever. And so, like I said, partnerships. So.
Fabulous. Brett, you have a question.
Yeah, it was just more so of a comment. You guys are talking about additional funding. I'll be honest with you, what I'm going to talk about, I haven't done. It's been on my radar. I just haven't had a chance to do it with all the multiple tasks I've always got going on. But I'm on Walmart's website. I just wanted to pass along the Walmart grant that it looks like is out there for all Walmarts. It's called the Spark Good Local Grant. And if you go to that website and type that in, they've got 3 different periods that they go through. Looks like we're in the last period, November 1st through December 31st. And it looks like, just by kind of scrolling through some of the information that's on the website, just real quickly, it looks like each facility manager is the one responsible for the completion or any final approved steps or grant application process, or whatever funding you're asking for. If it needs to go over that amount, it looks like each facility manager at each particular Walmart would be the person to contact to get that started. So I just basically just wanted to share that with everybody.
Well, thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. Can you copy and paste that link into the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get that for everybody. You should see it coming here in just a minute here.
Thank you.
Hey, Brett, thank you for bringing that up. This is Jeanette. When we had the Rhode Island MRC present, I don't remember which month it was, they did mention that if you guys want to apply for that Walmart grant, you can apply for multiple Walmarts. So if you happen to be in an area where there is 3 Walmarts around you and you want to apply for them, they were able to receive multiple Walmart grants. So it does not preclude you from applying for more than one. So I thought that was very interesting
Yeah,
for whoever's interested in that.
I believe what I just kind of skimmed through and what I saw on the website, I think they said you can apply for at one particular Walmart, I think up to 24 times in each one of those grant processes for different options and different things. So,
Awesome.
I think after 25 in one period, I think you can restart over with a 25 in another period, if I understood it correctly, just very quickly looking at it. But it did look like there was multiple opportunities. I'd be interested to hear, going forward, feedback from anybody that's used that. Like I said, myself, I'm fairly new. I knew that it was out there. I heard it when I went to the NATO conference last year, but I haven't had an opportunity to actually ask for assistance from anything from our local. But yeah, I just wanted to share. So even if I don't do it, maybe somebody beat me to the punch. But figured this is a good opportunity to let everybody know that's available and share best practices and get feedback if somebody beats me to the punch of getting that process applied and using some money from the local. Because I would imagine, I mean, with MRC and what we do and everything like that, I wouldn't see that's a great collaboration for partner stakeholders, and their stuff's going to stay local. So I wouldn't see why the folks would not want to do that, and it still gets Walmart's name out there too. So.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Brett. I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other questions for Ben? All right, if for some reason you guys think of questions afterwards, please feel free. You can send them to Ben. Ben, can you put your email in the chat, pretty please? Either that or you can email the Merkle Gmail and we can, make sure that it does get to Ben. He has access to that, so he'll see them anyway. So just a couple reminders that I wanted to share. I know that majority of you will hop over to the 11 o'clock. So speaking of funding, the application and the request for applications for round 3 for the Merkle MRC Strong funding is available on Merkle's website. This time we are doing both Tier 1 and Tier 2 funding for $5,000 and $10,000. So if you have any questions, if you have received round 1 or round 2 funding, you are eligible to apply for round 3. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Local training. If you haven't already applied to have a local training at your location, that's where Merkle will pay the vendor directly, but it's $2,700 to be able to bring a training in locally, whether it's CPR, first aid, mental health first aid, ground search and rescue, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. But anyway, it's funding to be able to bring the training to you. We know that the majority of MRC coordinators are also wearing, 20 other hats. So, and sometimes it's extremely difficult to be able to send people to training. So let's bring it to you. Background checks. There is funding available for background checks. It is in the system. So we can either in Illinois Helps, where we can work to have background checks for your local volunteers. Each unit has X amount that they can do either in Illinois Helps or using Sterling volunteers. So if you have any questions on that, I know we've discussed that in the past, but we have some information available. Just reach out. And then funding for volunteer protections. So general liability, things like that. There's applications available for that. That is reimbursement for up to $600 per unit. The funding for that is limited, however, so as soon as that funding is used up, it'll be gone. And then finally, just as a reminder, the Remarkable training workshops registration is available on the MRC website, both under MRC Strong and under volunteer resources. The North event will be on December 7th. The central event will be on February 8th, and the southern event will be on March 15th. And I am so super excited. I got the email first thing this morning. We have approval for 7.25 nursing CEUs. So please, please, please spread it far and wide. We will be updating the training flyer so you can forward that on to your volunteers. And then we will be hearing about pre-hospital CEUs here soon. And I'll make sure and forward that out as well. So I will make sure that I will send you the link to the trainings available. Otherwise, does anybody else have any other questions? Brett, is that another question? If anybody has a question, I know this is a lot of information in a really short amount of time, and I talk really, really fast.
Hey,
So, yes.
Just a reminder to everybody that the link in the chat that Andrea posted is to a marketing survey. For those of you that might not have seen it, if you came in a little bit late, we went through it in the very beginning of the webinar. If you could take a minute, it literally just takes a minute. We just want to know your feedback on what you think would be best to help us plan the marketing dollars that we have allocated to do a big campaign. And we just want to know what would work best for your community and for your MRC. Thank you.
All right. Well, if
Marcia has
nobody
a
else-
question about the website.
Yes. So the Merkle website is okay for the most part. We're still working to put a couple other things up that were previously removed. If you're looking for something on the website and the link doesn't work, something's missing or anything, please, please, please reach out. I know we did send a notification out that the website was down. It is back up, but there are still a couple links that aren't working. They should be working. But again, if you are looking for something that isn't there, just reach out. It should be there. If that makes sense. Thank you, Marcia. Ben, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just two things. Like if you're using wound packing stuff and you're just looking, say, the expired stuff, just think of other places that, have expired stuff, any place that has it, comes off, hospitals, ambulance service, etc. Any of that stuff that has expiration dates, some of those places just throw it away. So reach out to any place that has that stuff, because like I said, they just throw it away. Some of them do, so you might just be able to get it for free from them. To be honest. And then the other thing, and I forgot to put it on the slide, another source maybe for funding. I've seen insurance companies like one that just comes to my mind. I don't know what their requirements are, but like State Farm or Allstate, etc., do offer grants at times too. That's all.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I will give you guys back 2 short minutes before the 11 o'clock. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.